The role of the New York Times is not defined by its circulation. It's defined by the fact that it sets the agenda. That's number one. Number two, most newspapers do not have foreign bureaus, and so they will run the Times foreign coverage. So that's the power of the Times. It sets the agenda.
Starting with something that is definitely not breaking news, the American newspaper of record, the New York Times, has a track record of supporting Israel. What is new are the stakes. Israel is on trial for genocide at the International Court of Justice. Core to its propaganda effort has been framing Hamas's attacks on October 7th as extraordinarily sadistic, like something out of the ISIS playbook.
The wholesale massacre, mutilation, rape, and abduction of as many citizens as the terrorists could find.
Enter the Times and this story, published in late December. It accused Palestinian militants of weaponizing rape and sexual violence, systematically unleashing it on Israeli women and men. A lurid allegation, a sensational story, but one that the evidence simply fails to support.
When the New York Times said, we've done a 2-month-long investigation, we interviewed 150 people, and we found a broad pattern of sexual violence on October 7th, that, for a lot of people, just closed the case. If the New York Times is saying it, then it must be true. I even had friends who know how much Israel misrepresents things and lies, who said, Ali, now, surely you have to give some credence to what it's saying. But it's a case of journalistic fraud because it just doesn't deliver the goods.
The principal criticism lies within the main claim, which is that not only did sexual assault and occasions of rape occur, but that they were used systematically. Since that report has been published, major flaws have emerged, not just in the contents itself, but also when it comes to the actual journalists and authors behind the report.
Alternative U.S. news outlets, subscriber-funded ones like Mondovice, Electronic Intifada, and The Gray Zone went to work debunking the Times' story. They noted the article contained zero direct testimony from victims, that the alleged eyewitnesses the paper quoted were either anonymous or of dubious credibility, that the family of a woman killed on October 7th disputed the Times' assertion that she had been raped. Another of the Times' sources accused the reporters of pressuring them to speak, saying it was important for Israel's PR effort. One of the reporters involved, Anat Schwartz, had never filed a news story before October 7th. She is a filmmaker whose Wikipedia page said she had worked for Israeli intelligence. Had the Times done its homework, its editors would have known that Schwartz's social media accounts revealed she had liked some disturbing posts, including one advocating turning Gaza into a slaughterhouse, a post South Africa included in its case against Israel at the ICJ. Not that the story was Schwartz's idea, as she explained to Israeli Army radio.
הניו יורק טיימס אמר, בואו נעשה תחקיר על אלימות מינית. זה היה יותר לשכנע אותי מאשר הם אמרו מההתחלה.
זו הצעה של הניו יורק טיימס כל המחקר, כל התחקיר הזה?
חד משמעית.
It was an odd way for such a report to come together. Still, the Times published it and showcased it.
Imagine it was the other way around. Any Palestinian who whispers something that is considered politically incorrect is out in a second.
Every time the media lies, another child in Gaza died.
And yet you have this person who worked for the Israeli intelligence, who wasn't a journalist, and who liked on social media these blood-curdling calls for the decimation of Palestinians in Gaza, and that's the person you hire to report on your story. Disparity between standards is staggering.
The New York Times article had an enormous impact. I've seen it cited repeatedly, even by some human rights organizations. But I have to say, I think that it had less influence than it might have had if independent media outlets had not exposed the flaws in it. The New York Times is used to getting away with this, and this time they didn't.
Critics of that Times report included people on the inside. The paper's podcast, The Daily, planned to produce a version of the story, but dropped the project following dissent in the newsroom over concerns about the journalism. Roughly 6 weeks later, when UN officials highlighted quote-unquote credible allegations that Israelis had raped or sexually assaulted Palestinians they have imprisoned, including children, the Times failed to cover the story.